We made it, fantasy fanatics. Another Friday in the books and another week of fantasy hockey dominance. We hope tapped into the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast, and the coverage of the NHL rolls on. Freddie Andersen down, Askarov up, and what is going on with these banged up Toronto Maple Leafs, and a whole lot more. Let's tap in and let's get this paper.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Buckle up and here we go, hockey heads. It's your daily 30-minute source for fantasy hockey, NHL news, and betting breakdowns. It's the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. As always, I am joined by my esteemed co-host, Mr. Steele Roden. On this side of the microphone, it's your boy, Big Philip Livingstone. We couldn't be here doing the show without y'all and the everydayers holding us down, making us your first listen every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Mr. Roden, there is a lot going on right now in the NHL, and there is a lot to get to on today's episode. So I want to keep all the chit-chat, the flub on the lips a little tight today. So I'm going to throw it right over to you because usually it's me doing that. Freddie Andersen, a good goaltender. We got lots to get to. Askarov, Demko, a bunch of goalie stuff. We'll talk about Matty Knies, big-time bets. But Freddie Andersen, out once again? I think it's Kochetkov's crease from here on out.
Here on out, indeed. This has been a broken record for Frederik Andersen. And as much as it pains us to say, I mean, he's just not a reliable fantasy hockey goaltender to depend on. I said it in the preseason. I'm saying it again. Pyotr Kochetkov is the guy of the future. And as long as Frederik Andersen continues to be injured, he has to be the guy. He has been absolutely spectacular so far for the Hurricanes this season, especially in the last 5 games. 4 wins in his last 5, a .972 save percentage here, a .967 save percentage over here, and a .947 save percentage once again. He has been lights out in the blue paint for the Carolina Hurricanes. Martin Necas, Sebastian Aho, all those guys are getting it done offensively. This team is legit. We had question marks. No more questions whatsoever. Frederik Andersen, though, I mean, he's still a solid goaltender. He's still a great player to have. I mean, obviously not now. You're going to drop him. He's out for the next 2 months at least after undergoing knee surgery.
Yep.
But, I mean, he's been solid in the 4 games he played this year. There's been nothing wrong, obviously, besides the injury. So, I mean, when he gets back to being healthy, this is a guy that I would definitely recommend and persuade people to go pick up if he's available on the waiver wire, because when he's healthy, he's still going to be getting some game time action, maybe just not as much as Kochetkov. So, I was in early, you were in early on Kochetkov. We've got him in a few different leagues that we're in this season.
Yeah.
Unfortunate news for Andersen. He's out for the next 2 months, but Kochetkov, he's got the reins now.
Most definitely. And I think when you look at how good the team has been in front of whatever goaltender has been in there, this is a situation that fantasy-wise, you got to have your eyes peeled on it because, dedicated fantasy heads, they were in on Kochetkov. But out there in those more, the shallower leagues with fewer GMs and a lot more players where maybe Kochetkov wasn't owned before, it's a must-add, absolutely, clearly, and obviously. But a goaltender that's shown, and we're going to talk about Askarov, Kochetkov's proven at all the other levels he's played at that he can get it done. He is ready for the big time. I actually think Askarov is the same. Much better team and a much better situation for fantasy value here with Kochetkov. And let me just throw a few numbers at you. The Carolina Hurricanes have the 9th best power play in the league. What do good teams have? Good special teams. They are 5th best on the penalty kill and perennially a very well-coached team by Rod Brindamore. And yeah, that's not exactly a fantasy stat, but this plays into it, especially for goaltenders. They allow the second least shots against per game at 25 even. That's really impressive. If you're keeping your goaltender to only facing that amount of rubber steel, especially a young one who's had his ups and downs, this is the perfect spot. Kochetkov's value is about to go through the roof, and we haven't really spoken a ton about this Carolina team, Steele. They sit tops in the Metro Division. They have the best goal differential by far of any other Eastern Conference team at, I believe it was sitting at plus 30 when I looked at that earlier.
Yep.
Let me just check that in. Plus 30. I don't know what you think, and this is what I want to turn over to you before we get to all of our other topics, bets, and otherwise. Do you think this is finally the year for the Carolina Hurricanes? Marty Necas, one of the hottest players in the league, Kochetkov doing his thing. This is a team that's been in the playoffs, I think, 7 or 8 years in a row, but can't get it done. What do you think about this team overall? Because so far, so good.
Look, they're the Toronto Maple Leafs of the Metropolitan Division. I don't think it's their year. You know how I feel about the New York Rangers. I've said it over the last 3 seasons. They keep getting better and better. Igor Shesterkin, the best goaltender in the National Hockey League. I mean, if their superstar players can start performing in the playoffs, I mean, I think this Rangers team can go all the way. I'm not saying it's not a possibility. Obviously, anything can happen with how good they've been this season, but for me, I don't think it's their season. I have New York Rangers going all the way. That's my team right now. I'm betting on them heavily. So for me, my answer is going to have to be a no matter what, how good they are right now. It is not their season to go all the way.
I actually appreciate that, and let's move on to. I want to give some more goalie updates, but these wins over the last little while. So they beat Pittsburgh, boo-hoo. They get dusted by the Avalanche. They get dusted by Utah. They beat Ottawa. They beat St. Louis. There's not just a ton. Yeah, no, I know they had a big win against Vegas too, but if you know what I'm saying, I'm not really buying into this one as much as perhaps I would be with other teams. The bottom 6 leaves a lot to be desired. Are they going to be knocking on the door for a second round playoff? For sure. But I don't know. I'm not getting overly hyped about the team overall. However, fantasy-wise, lots to love. Let's talk about it, though. Yaroslav Askarov has been one of those names that fantasy GMs have been waiting to pop seemingly for forever. I want to throw a few facts, though, at you. This is a general manager, David Poile selection who knows good goalies. So I know at some point he's going to get there. Looks like he's getting his first start with the San Jose Sharks. This is intriguing, Steele. Mackenzie Blackwood, not a number 1. He struggled. Vitek Vanacek, he's hurt. Not a number 1. When you know how serious I am about goaltenders, when there's a guy who's starting to get a real look to perhaps be the number 1, we got to talk about it. The Sharks are still bad. Askarov might still have to fight for minutes, but I just wanted to throw it out there because he's been sensational in the AHL this season. Let me just throw out his stats. Then over to you for the San Jose Barracuda of the AHL this year, 6-3-0. 1.92 goals against and a 940 save percentage. He's gotten it done at the AHL. He's ready for the NHL. And with the Sharks on the come up, this is a nasty keeper dynasty ad that I'm all over.
Yeah, I mean, why not get him into the NHL action right now? He's been fantastic with the Barracudas. Like you said, outstanding numbers in the 9 games he's been a part of so far this season. I don't want to give too much hate on Mackenzie Blackwood. I agree with you. I don't think he's a number 1, but he actually hasn't been too bad this season, all things considered. Over the last 5 games, I mean, the last 2 games against the Detroit Red Wings and Dallas Stars, some bad numbers, goals against average and save percentage, but he had a shutout against his former team, the Devils, a 3-2 loss against the Rangers where he put up a 914 save percentage and then a 962 save percentage as well against the Pittsburgh Penguins. So, I mean, he's been okay this year. Again, all things considered with how this team is shaping up and the way it is shaped right now. But, I mean, Askarov's, you traded for him for a reason. You got to get him into the NHL action as soon as possible. And right now, when he is red hot like this, you got to get him because maybe he can make a bit of a difference. Obviously, they're not going to be pushing for any playoffs or postseason berths, but he still could be a very vital key to their confidence and their success as they continue to go through these growing pains.
If you're a Mackenzie Blackwood owner, this has impacts. If you're someone out there looking for, like myself, a little week-to-week goalie love, Askarov's the perfect stream, perfect flyer right now. That could stick longer term if this is the goaltender that takes the reins. The point I guess I was trying to make, Steele, about, Mackenzie Blackwood's had a bit of a mixed bag of performances over the last 5 games. But what I'm trying to say is they are going to give whoever in San Jose a real good look who can go on a heater. Will that be Askarov? I don't know. I actually own him in my Keeper Dynasty League. We have a couple of minor eligibility slots that you're allowed to keep 3 players who are up and down from the A or otherwise in that spot. So that's where I have him right now, but he's going to be sliding up to the big boy club very soon. We'll continue to talk about some goaltending situations, especially the one in Vancouver. We got an OV update and we got big time bets. I got a same game parlay coming in hot. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Take the guesswork out of your next ticket buying experience with Game Time. Comedy, theater, music, sports, all in your area. Game Time is your go-to. It's the best app that you need to be using to buy in tickets. Like I said, take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. What time is it? Game time.
And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Continue to smash that subscribe button, the follow button, leave a 5-star review. We appreciate all that love and support you show us Monday through Friday. Make sure you're staying tuned in for this weekend's special, Saturday and Sunday, all weekend long. You can find our episodes and podcasts on your favorite podcast platform and, of course, on YouTube. So thank you so much for tuning in to everything we've got going on in the fantasy hockey realm. Thatcher Demko news, Ovechkin update, the Leafs banged up, and of course, big time bets at the end of the
Forgot
episode.
about the Leafs, Steele, my bad.
Let's start with Thatcher Demko though, because obviously we haven't talked about him pretty much since the season started. You know, we've kind of just let him do his work in the shadow realm. He's working on his health, obviously, the injuries, the rehab. But he will be traveling with the team. So that is a good sign, obviously, for this Canucks team that they have Lankinen, they have Shelovs, they just lost JT Miller for personal reasons. So
yeah, huge.
This is some pretty big news for them if they can get Thatcher Demko sooner than later.
When I look at the stats for this Vancouver Canucks team, 18th in the NHL with goals against. They're pretty good on the power play, pretty good on the penalty kill. I told you that I wasn't really buying into them overall from what I've seen so far from them on the ice. Obviously, not having their number one goaltender is a thing. Pettersson playing the way that he's been playing, impacting them. JT Miller now out. Brock Besser has been out. They haven't been at their number one, complete back to front unit that I've expected to see. But I think with Demko waiting in the wings, this is huge, and they need it so bad because, look, Lankinen has deserved a lot of credit for really keeping this boat afloat. 8-3-2 in one shutout in his 13 games played, 2.71 goals against and a .902 save percentage. But still, over his last 5 starts, he's allowed 18 goals against. He's been getting blown up a little bit. He allowed the 7-piece to Edmonton. This is not the guy that you can rely on. Shelovs is not the guy either. Vancouver Canucks fans can get excited about Shelovs all they want. This is not going to be a team to go through Dallas, not Colorado, Dallas, Winnipeg, any of these squads that are cooking right now. It's not going to happen. So Demko, the fact that he is, quote, day-to-day in his own mind, that's not a team quote. So take that with a grain of salt, but he is getting very close apparently, and traveling with the team is a good indication. This is something that you and I just need to talk about because I'm sure there are a lot of GMs out there that have burned an IR spot waiting for Demko, or guys who are looking to maybe pick him up. I would say keep your finger on the trigger because I think it will be huge for this Vancouver Canucks team, especially after they just lost your boy in JT Miller.
Yeah, big news in a positive light for the Vancouver Canucks, but some bad news for the Washington Capitals in a negative light.
Great segue.
Yeah, Alex Ovechkin. We didn't think it was going to be this bad. We're not going to talk about him long because we've talked about him at least for 5-10 minutes on every episode the last week just because of the goal chase. So we'll leave this real shortly, but he will miss the next 4 to 6 weeks with a fractured fibula. Alex Ovechkin has only missed 35 games due to injury in his 20-year NHL career. It's absolutely great. And that's not even taking in, obviously, suspension or COVID and All-Star COVID and suspensions due to All-Star, missing the All-Star, whatever. He's out 4 to 6 weeks with a fractured left fibula, likely to miss upwards of 50% of all that total in one shot now. So this will be the longest we've been without Alexander Ovechkin due to injury. Didn't think it was that bad. This hurts the fantasy team tremendously. He was so hot. The Capitals team was so hot. We're going to have to keep our eye on what their production is like without him. Obviously relying a lot on Dylan Strome, John Carlson on the back end. But what a loss, because this was a season everybody was tuning in for because he was chasing down the great one.
Yep. And you and I spoke. It's kind of unfortunate because we were just really starting to ride this Ovi hype train.
Yeah, we were.
Caps were starting to look good. It's just good for hockey. This just sucks for hockey. Fantasy, of
It's
course,
brutal.
that's a huge hole. The new top line in Washington right now is Connor McMichael, PLD, and Tom Wilson. So that has fantasy impacts as well. This is something that you and I are, funny. We said we're going to go a break from over. We're going to have to talk about this again on Waiver Wire Monday because there are going to be a lot of people out there clamoring for a situation where you're going to you ain't filling the goal scoring leader in the NHL right now, but we're going to do our best for y'all, see what we can do on Waiver Wire Monday. Yeah, it hurts. And those stats about him being so durable, Steele, man, this guy is just, it's gonna really just be sad when he leaves the game. You know how I feel about Sid. When these two guys decide to hang it up, this league is gonna look a whole lot different. But yeah, those numbers are just seriously impressive. And so has he been this year. And let's see what this Washington Capitals team is made of now, because I think you really will have this metal tested in Washington with this group that has a lot of fresh faces in it, a lot of young players as well. They've had some great goaltending. If that can continue, I think they'll still hang around. The fact that it is a fractured fibula as well, Steele, for a guy who's 39 years old, I know they're saying 4 to 6 weeks, and a lot of times guys come back earlier because they're pro athletes. Ovi's got a lot of weight on the body, a lot of mileage on the body, and he's an old man when it comes to pro sports. So all of those things can go haywire. The rest of today's episode will not, though, because I don't think you and I have spoken about what we think about that Whitecloud on Knies hit. So
Not yet.
Over to you, Matty Knies. He's going to miss some time, I believe. I don't know what the time frame is there. I don't know if you have that, but I know Craig Berube made some interesting comments about him thinking that's a clean hit. What do you think?
Yeah, I guess we'll start there. We'll start there with all these injuries the Maple Leafs are dealing with. I mean, this is a completely, I don't even know what's going on with the lineup right here. You bring in Nikita Grabenkin, who had a positive game for his NHL debut. Fraser Minton pots his first goal of the National Hockey League. Alexander Steve, Connor Dewar get in the lineup. This was a mixed and matched bag for the Maple Leafs. Austin Matthews continues to miss time as he's on the IR. Max Pacioretty, Calle Yarncroke, David Camp, Ryan Reeves out, obviously, for suspension, Max Domi, and now Matthew Knies. This is not a good sign if it's a concussion, because I believe this will be his second concussion in the last 2 years, 2 or 3 years anyways. I'm fine with the hit. I thought it was fine. I thought it was good and clean. Obviously, there's a lot going on when you break down the video fragment by fragment, or by every fraction, whatever it is.
Yep.
I mean, you're going to see him in the air. I don't know if people don't know how physics work, but when two objects are colliding like that, one's bound to go one way and one's bound to go the other way. In this case, Knies went down, Whitecloud went up. I mean, the elbow was tucked in. He's going through the chest. Knies is leaning a little bit too. So, of course, he's going to catch a little bit of the head. But, I mean, all things considered, I actually thought it was a good, clean hit. It's unfortunate that, again, going through the body first, you're catching a piece of the chin. And then, again, the way it worked is Whitecloud just went up. At the point of contact, his skates were on the ice. So I'm fine with the hit. I didn't think it was bad. I mean, people are comparing this to the Ryan Reeves, Darnell Nurse hit. You can't compare the two. When you slow down both videos side by side, Darnell's Nurse did a complete 360 around his body. I mean, it went 180 like an owl. I mean, it's not even comparable. So for me, I was fine with it. It's not the same. He didn't deserve suspension.
Yeah, it's also, we got to always factor in the track record of the players. Whitecloud to Reeves is like apples to oranges, I would believe. But the fact remains, Matt Knies has been an important piece for this Toronto Maple Leafs forward group. He has been a bit of a steal in terms of a fantasy asset. 8 goals, 8 assists, 36 shots on net, eating by far the most minutes he's ever had in his career, just under 18 minutes a night, where his previous average was just over 14. And really throwing his weight around. He had 5 hits the other night against Montreal, looking like he's starting to play real confident hockey in Steele. This is going to hurt this team if he is out for a prolonged period of time. That's a bit of an obvious take. But when you look at some of those other fill-ins right now, this could get off the rails in a hurry for a Toronto Maple Leafs group that, without getting too ahead of ourselves here, because we got to get to bets, they've looked very good. And they are playing the kind of hockey now that Craig Berube was brought in here to play, and that is no nonsense and being accountable for your mistakes. I love how he's been all over them on behind the bench. It's time for that. And at 26 points, they lead the division. So this could mean big things for the Leafs if he's out long-term. Fantasy-wise, again, big waiver wire Monday. Lots of big injuries. Let's get to break and let's talk about bets because I'm ready to continue to stack some of this holiday loot, if you get me.
2 games on the schedule for Friday night. Another same game parlay. We're getting after it where you can place those bets. That's FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place those bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Pod your first listen every single day. Continue to smash that subscribe button, the follow button, leave a 5-star review. We appreciate all that love and support you show us. Monday through Friday, 7 o'clock in the morning is when you can find our episodes. Flip, 2 games on the schedule. I'm looking at one. Which one are you looking at? I'm looking at the Penguins-Winnipeg game.
Perfect.
The Jets-Penguins game. Is that where you're looking to?
No, I'm not. I'm looking at the Buffalo-Anaheim game, and I know that one looks a little rough around the edges, but this is perfect. We're covering both games for the listeners out there. I know you've been on a really good streak overall. I think I've done the same. So let's try and get after it. Why don't you just take it away, and I'll wrap it up with a Buffalo-Anaheim parlay.
I will do so indeed. Same game parlay for me. I'm focusing solely on that Penguins-Jets game. Penguins at home, Jets on the road. Yep. Obviously, I'm going with the top dog here, the Jets. First pick on the money line. I think you could also squeeze the puck line depending on what the odd is. But as of right now, I'm going to hammer the Jets on the money line. They don't lose against bad teams. They don't lose to bad teams. Only 3 losses on the season so far. So you got to go with the heavy favorite here. Jets on the money line, first pick. Second pick, Scheifele anytime goal. This guy has been red hot this season so far.
Yeah, he's been great.
12 goals, 24 points, I believe, so far this season. He's been fantastic for them. He had a hat trick the other night against the Florida Panthers. I like the Scheifele anytime goal. He's been shooting the biscuit. He's been picking corners, and he's been picking those opportunities very to perfection. So I'm liking the Scheifele anytime goal. For my last pick, though, I'm also going with the Kyle Connor 2+ points in this matchup. He's also been red hot for this Jets organization so far this season. I like the confidence. I like the playmaking, of course, the shot making and shot options. I'm going with those 3 picks for Friday night. Jets money line, Scheifele anytime goal, and Connor 2+ points.
You've been loving the 2+ point player.
I'm loving the 2+ points.
And you know what? I hope this isn't a letdown spot for the Jets because of how bad the Penguins have been. But everything that the Jets have been doing this season is pointing in the direction that they're for real. So there is not going to be any ounce of me. I actually, you know what I like to do? I like to look at Sid anytime assist. I couldn't even do it in this situation because of how bad the Penguins have looked and how good the Jets have looked. That sometimes can mean the opposite when it comes to betting, but I don't think it will be in this situation. I like that 2+ points from Kyle Connor. That might catch a little piece of my money as well. Look, the Anaheim Ducks have been playing some pretty good hockey over the last 3 games. 6-4 win against Detroit. Doesn't jump off the page. It's the Red Wings. But how about a 4-2 victory against the Dallas Stars? That should. And then against the Chicago Blackhawks, okay, again, ho-hum 3-2. They squeaked it out. So aside from that Dallas win, what I'm trying to say is I still think that this is a very bad Anaheim team. And when I look at Buffalo, 5 wins out of their last 7 games, including a big one over the Rangers, a big one over Calgary, and a 1-0 shutout against a really good LA Kings team. I think this is a sign of things to come for the Buffalo Sabres. So this one's going to be very Buffalo-centric, starting with the Buffalo Sabres on the money line. It's a fairly even split in the last 10 games between these two clubs, but remember, these are two teams that barely play each other, so I'm not going to take a whole lot of stock into that. I'm looking at how they're playing right now. The Buffalo Sabres also are getting some really, really good play all of a sudden out of Rasmus Dahlin, who has caught fire. 7 points in his last 5 games, 4 of those being assists. Second point of the night, second pick of the night, Rasmus Dahlin. Anytime assist, really liking that. I'm liking all 3 of these, but the lock of the night, I'm going to tease the total down. 6.5 is scaring me a little bit because of Dostal on somewhat of a heater. John Gibson, whoever's in the cage, they've been pretty good. And there was a shutout last time out for the Buffalo Sabres. So I'm going to tease it down to 5.5. And because of that bit of a cop-out, I'm going to make that my lock of the night. But this is a same-game parlay. So over 5.5. Dahlin, anytime assist, and Buffalo on the money line. I'm going to spit this one out, Steele.
We got the same game parlays, but for different games. I might have to put all 6 of those picks together for a juicy Friday night. Hey, that's what we're doing. We spice it up. That's juicy for sure, but we're feeling it. Those are the picks. Those are the lock of the night. And that is today's Friday's episode. Thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. For your second listen, you got to go make sure you check out the Locked On NHL Podcast, where the season never ends, providing national expertise with a local perspective. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. From both Flip and I, we wish you good luck with your bets tonight. Enjoy your weekend, and we shall see you back here again tomorrow for the weekend specials.
Peace.